We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created, that they're endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, and among them is life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. I don't say this in order to give a constitutional lesson, but that is a premise for what we do, that the right to liberty, the right to life, the right to freedom is a God-given gift. That's not a gift given to us by the government. It's given to us by God. It's our role in the rescue operations to hold governments accountable, to make sure that our God-given rights are protected. And so I begin this with stating that as long as one life can be taken or given by the government, all lives are in danger. And I think it's very important that we understand that, because outside of that, if we can qualify which life deserves to be born and which life deserves to die and which life deserves to be taken based on their criminal activities, then we can decide about other life. To engage in the work is a great challenge in society under any circumstances, and it's difficult at its very best. But in order to engage in the work, education is at the key of what we do. To make people aware of what goes on in their midst, right under their noses, has been a great challenge. It's been a tremendous challenge. And certainly my worldview and my understanding needed an education. And this was a happenstance education in 2001 when I met Sister Eugenia Bonetti. That meeting led to a journey of discovery and consequently what you'll see in a little while, what we call Metanoia Manor. There's no need to explain to everyone gathered here the exploits, the work, and the heroism of Sister Eugenia Bonetti. But in her introduction to me, she told me about her first encounter with a young girl by the name of Maria. And she made a statement that has stayed with me all these years. She said, Maria was my catechist. And in my vernacular, a catechist is someone who makes you aware of who God is, and then how do we respond to God and serve Him. And seeing this young victim as her catechist, I think demands a response. We were very, very lucky. I was able to convince the old grandma here to come to Louisiana, and she's visited on 3 different occasions. And we're going back to about 2003, 2004, when she came and in my parish church explained to people the horrors of human trafficking. My people know what human trafficking is, and my people respond. I think all of us know and have had the experience that once someone becomes aware, you can no longer remain indifferent. If you've got a heart, if you've got a soul, you cannot remain indifferent to human trafficking in any of its forms. Excuse me. And so that was the first experience for my parish, excuse me, which led to a very generous response. And from time to time, we were able to supplement the work of Sister Eugenia, which financed the opening and the reconditioning of a convent in Nettuno, and paid for 2 years' rent for a house of reentry in Lagos, Nigeria. And so their hearts were touched. And then as we began to do it, we still had the misconception that human trafficking is over there. And so the need to address it, and address it very seriously, was still not there. Then I had Sister address law enforcement in the state of Louisiana. And what would be the head of the Carabinieri, in Italy, was the state police colonel. And at that time, they had only made 2 arrests for human trafficking. Currently, they've had over 2,000 arrests because of Sister's education. Obviously in law enforcement and in every walk of life, they're the undesirables. But I don't believe that's a common rule for us in the United States. And there are many heroic men and women who want to do great things, they just don't know. And so their education became part of it. And even after the arrest started to happen, people started to think, isn't that terrible? But they're not Americans. Now, as offensive as that sounds, and that's why I go back to my premise, these are God-given rights, not simply to Americans. These are God-given rights to the dignity of every human person. And the local impact still didn't happen. And as we began, and I was lucky enough to have the opportunity to start working with people involved in the government, starting with legislators, and currently the state of Louisiana leads the United States in anti-trafficking legislation. We have one particular senator who's authored 28 bills, more than anyone else in the United States. That awareness has happened. But getting from the State House to the house on the block in the neighborhood still didn't happen. So what I was able to do was to convince our law enforcement, as well as our Department of Children and Family Services, which regulates all work for juveniles in the state, to get them to involve media. Call them, give them a story. Everybody wants a story. The more horrible the details, the more sensational. That's what media does today. They look for the big bad story. We had a case in my home city 2 summers ago, and it was a mother trafficking her 13 and her 15-year-old daughter. And the story came out that poor thing, she got behind on rent, and so therefore she had to sell her daughters. Well, when they came in to get the daughters and remove them from the home, there was still the drug paraphernalia for the mother in the home. And so when you start to put out stuff like this, people start to realize one of the sad realities, and I don't think we are alone in this, but in the state of Louisiana, 40% of our juvenile victims of human trafficking are trafficked by their primary caregiver, their mother, their father, their aunt, their uncle, their mother's boyfriend. The people who were there to keep them safe have become their traffickers. And, that destruction of trust has been really terrible. This led to getting even more involved. Last January, I was able to take a congressional delegation along with the governor of our state, and I do trafficking tours. I bring them to Rome. They meet the grandmother of the project. We go to safe houses. We hear the stories of the children. The people who go on those events are forever changed and forever committed. They've seen it with their own eyes. It's not something that happens over there. They start to realize it's right under our noses. Consequently, we were able to have our governor meet the Holy Father, and here again, I'm not going to let her tell the story. It'll take 20 minutes. But she was a great part of that. And in doing so, this congressional delegation and the governor, who met with the Pope, who blessed the cornerstone for our building that I'll show you in a few minutes, they left here with a mandate from the Pope to go save these children. It's made a huge difference. What that has involved, it means calling in the judiciary. Our governor has demanded that in the state of Louisiana we have a juvenile court. He wants a human trafficking court. You know, you have drug courts and that, you know, for drug cases. He has mandated that we set up a human trafficking court. We deal with these children differently than we deal with kids in juvenile justice. He's also, you know, told the Department of Children and Family Services that as you go about group homes, and, you know, since they're juveniles, we have to have state approval. He's mandated we set up a separate category of homes for children who are trafficked. All these things have been very, very important in the success of our work. I have made it a point not to take state and federal money. When you take state and federal money, I mean, when I say you receive a 465-page policy and procedure manual, I'm not exaggerating the number of pages. And it just becomes overwhelming. And you end up worrying more about compliance than you do about the victims. But we are licensed. We are licensed, so the Department of Children and Family Services, as well as juvenile justice, can keep custody of the children and entrust them to our protective care. And in doing that, we found a lot of success because we're not bound. And on a religious, moral basis, in the United States, the definition of what is involved in a woman's health care violates some of our religious beliefs. Therefore, we will not take the federal money and be mandated to perform some of the medical services, but if that is the case, we will safely bring the children back into the state's custody and let that be on the state's conscience and not on our conscience. The community support and the outpouring, because this has gotten a lot of media. I mean, just yesterday, and I mean, just anecdotally, I blessed the cemetery for All Saints Day the Sunday before I came out. And I told them what I was doing. And there's a whole group of people, they call a woodworkers club. They make furniture. He contacted me in the last 2 days, said, what can we make? You know, we've had people who are donating services, donating. It's been tremendous. The outpouring, the support has been tremendous. And the reason is they know what's going on now. I have more opportunities to speak than I have time. One of the things we did was Friday before I came out, I went to one of the universities. And one of the things that we as a church deal with is the relevance of the church. Young people don't think the church matters anymore. We're just a bunch of old people, you know, talking about Jesus. When they see Jesus in action and dealing with human trafficking, there's a great love and response for the church. Again, I want to reinforce what President Archer has said, bring it to the pulpit. And I know Abraham is involved. Our people have to know. When they know, they will not remain indifferent. They will not remain silent. And I could go on, and I'm not, but if they could please queue up, I've got some pictures of the shelter. If they could please queue up the pictures for the PowerPoint. Last thing is the wonderful religious sisters. How do you pay someone hourly to love somebody? You can't do that. When the sisters come, they know why they're there. Could we have the PowerPoint, please? This is one of our group therapy rooms. This is our Superior Sister Norma. Wait a minute. That's another one of the therapy rooms. This is our social worker, Sister Ann Maria, in the office. This is Sister Ruth from Nigeria in our chapel. Chapel is a very important part of this. I'm doing this for God. That's our chapel. Sister Alexandrine from Madagascar. We have a huge kitchen. Of course, it will house 16 girls and 4 nuns, and they cook alla italiana, è molto buona. And this is our living room. See, we had to have the children's things for compliance. It's part of our living room. This is our upstairs door. No, this is our downstairs hallway. Piano. And one of the things that we did, that's our outdoor patio. We're on 3 acres of land. We're on state police property. We're about 2,000 feet away from law enforcement protection, and they monitor our security cameras. Beautiful area. It's our conference room. Here's the girls' bedrooms. Each girl has bedroom, closet, their private bath. We very intentionally did not use used materials. These children have been used enough. We want something new for them. We want it to be there, something for them to be proud of. Their private bath, their bedrooms. For many of them, it's the first time they've had something like this. And the front of our building. Thank you. I know the challenge is great, and what lies ahead of us, we don't know. But what lies within us is the grace of God, and we can do anything. Thank you.